Good afternoon, dear colleagues. It's an honor for us to present the results of our research in this workshop. Let me present our research, Digital Competence of Future Researchers, Empirical Research of PhD Students of Ukrainian University. The plan of our speech you can see on this slide. It will about objective and tasks of our study, the structure of digital competence of PhD students, results of survey among PhD students, and conclusions. The development of modern digital technologies and their implementations affect the nature of manufacturing, scientists, studies, education, culture, everyday life, social relations, and structures. In this context, it's worthwhile to consider a number of governmental initiatives from different countries and international documents, namely those concerning the development of the digital open science as an innovative way to integrate science into society, wherein their studies are conducted, published, and interpreted with the aid of digital tools and are available in open access. So the objective of this study is to identify the level of a researcher's digital competence based on the example of PhD students of an education institution as the factor affecting the quality of learning and the readiness of PhD students to advance. In the order to achieve the objective of our study, we set the following tasks that you can see on this slide. In our study, in order to conduct expert assessment, in the case the level of researchers' digital competence, a sample statistical survey was employed as one of the methods for monitoring and evaluation of effectiveness of education projects realization according to Thames and Miller. In order to formulate the questionnaire, we based it on researcher profile as the structure element of digital capabilities, Jisc, that focused on digital capabilities relevant for both young and experienced scholars of higher education. Since we employed descriptor characteristics from the official profile of digital researcher Jisc Reseacher, the additional validation of questionnaire reliability was not performed. For the convenience of data processing, every descriptor has been anchored by us. For example, G1 is ICT proficiency, G1.1 digital proficiency, use of ICT devices, software and services, use of specialized ICT devices, software and service, staying up to date with digital technologies as they evolve, and understanding the specifics of conducting research and selection of methods and tools. In order to conduct the survey among PhD students, we used Google Form consisting of 7 main sections. 6 sections contain questions for identifying the groups of competence according to Jisc recommendations. The last section requires to fill in the personal profile of the respondents, age, IT, access level, self-assessment of the level of digital competence, etc. The survey involved 46 first-year PhD students of Borys Grinchenko Kyiv University, and during the data analysis, a set of methods and models were used to calculate all descriptive statistics. The choice of certain indicators were determined by the type of data, evaluation scale, and limitations of their method use. The software tools of statistical data processing, CPSS, were used for calculation. Since access to technical devices and the Internet, as well as access to scientific databases, are vital conditions for assessment of PhD students' readiness to acquire and develop digital competence of researcher. These questions were included in the developed questionnaire. The results have shown that the majority of respondents have access to both computer equipment and scientific databases. It should be noted that each function descriptive statistics were calculated and frequency descriptions were constructed. As a result of the analysis of respondents' answers regarding the level of acquisition of groups of digital competence of researcher, frequency distributions of respondents' score on each question, as well as by total value, were plotted. As shown on this figure, the significant number of studies, characteristics, and limited number of respondents prevented us from drawing unambitious conclusions concerning the main trends of acquisition by PhD students of digital competence of researcher and determine their level. Distributions of total scores for every question of the questionnaire are far from normal, which prevents us from relying on average values in order to draw conclusions or making assumptions. Therefore, in order to determine separate competencies of researchers, we analyzed the mean group value for each group of competencies Jisc Reseacher. Since we rely on PhD students' self-assessment results, we are preliminarily interested in competencies, the formation of which is estimated below the threshold value of average. We will consider these competencies unformed. As we see on the second figure among respondents, the unformed competencies are those concerning understanding the specifics of conducting a study in a particular field and selection of methods and tools, as well as the use of specialized ICT devices, software and services. Mean value equals 1.8 and 1.9 respectively. The PhD students believe that among the components belonging to digital creation, problem solving, and innovation, they only have one capability formed, which is use a range of digital media and communicate research findings and scholarly ideas. It's G3.1.1. From the groups to competence digital creation, G3.1. Respondents reported the most problems with understanding how digital technologies are changing the field of research with respect to questions and challenges, methods, theories, and values, indicating a weak involvement in real research project, the closeness of domestic university science, or low motivation of graduate students. As for digital communication, collaboration, and participation, it's G4. The results are considerably better. This situation can be explained by the insufficiency of using the teaching methods as research with ICT support in the process of training graduate students, or the insufficient number of learning and research projects involving graduate students of various specialties and external stakeholders. The final two groups of competencies characterize the capability to digital learning and development, it's G5, and digital identity and well-being, G6. Self-assessment results show that respondents are capable of self-learning in the digital environment, but state above, insufficient involvement in science projects with digital support can be considered as one of the reasons for the weak motivation and unformed ability to conscious use of digital tools of research planning, implementation support, and progress monitoring. Respectively, lack of experience leads to unwillingness to be engaged in digital interaction, and even less so to support and motivate others. As for questions from the section Digital Identity and Well-being, out of 8 elements, postgraduate students report only the ability to understand the reputational benefits and risk of digital participation as a researcher as formed. However, the latter can be interpreted as readiness to self-identification and professional development of future scholars. The responsibility of the university is to create appropriate conditions for this. The digital transformation of scientific research and communication is a challenge and at the same time a chance for higher education institutions in the context of training and future digital researchers. Based on the results of the conducted empirical study, the readiness of acquire and develop digital competence of PhD students both at the level of resource provision and basis digital competence and motivation of future researchers is confirmed. In order to identify problems, either general or specific to PhD students, both in the context of training in higher education institutions and individual digital research practices, based on the analysis of average group values for each Jisc Reseacher competence group, unformed digital competence of researchers are relayed and authors' interpretation of causes and prospects of developments is provided. Prospects for further research include designing or updating of curricular and graduate training programs in higher education institutions in the context of the formation of digital competence of future researchers. Further research on this topic should also consider larger populations to identify whether the results of the consistency and internal validity analysis are due to sample size. Thank you very much for your attention.